03:12 a.m., East Berlin. A Soviet courier van explodes into fire and shrapnel. Inside, burned microfilm, troop maps, and a mop handle. No gunfire, no breach, no agents missing, but an entire spy ring had just collapsed, and no one could explain why. The Soviets scrambled to find the mole. They tore through shift logs, interrogated their own, but they missed one man. He swept the floors. He emptied ashtrays. And for 5 years, he was their ghost. Who was the janitor? Who dismantled the Cold War's most efficient spy network without ever being noticed? If stories like this grab you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around, because what you're about to hear almost never made it into the history books. Berlin, 1951. The air was cold, not from winter, but from silence. East Berlin was a city of half-truths and quiet steps. And in a textile factory just 2 blocks from the Soviet logistics district, a man with a limp and a mop was clocking in for another shift that no one noticed. Emil Kohler was the kind of man people didn't look at twice. A wartime conscript turned invisible civilian, he arrived before the factory floor buzzed with life, stayed late, and didn't speak unless spoken to. He had no family, no pension, no affiliations. Just keys. Dozens of them. He cleaned the offices, the shipping bay, the stairwells, the locked storage units no one seemed to inspect. He cleaned quietly, predictably, until he started noticing things no one else did. Like how crates marked for North Rail sometimes disappeared without ever reaching the trucks. Or how the loading manifests were changed after midnight, logged with a different pen. He saw men in uniform arrive without names on the roster, standing too still for too long near the West Gate. And always, that same black Zim 12 sedan, creeping in on Tuesdays at exactly 2:31 a.m., waiting 12 minutes, then gone. To everyone else, they were scraps of noise. To Emil, they were threads. Threads that formed a pattern. Patterns that, once spotted, became impossible to unsee. No one had told him to look. No agency had hired him. He wasn't trained. But war leaves behind instincts. And Emil had one that wouldn't stay quiet. Something was wrong here. It was a busted spindle that gave him proof. It fell from a crate on Dock 2, cracked open at the base. Inside wasn't thread. It was film. Rolled microfilm. Dozens of exposures packed inside a hollow core, wrapped in cotton for insulation. Technical documents, maps, typed communiques, not meant to be found. He stared at it for a long time, then rewrapped it, put it back, and closed the crate. No one saw him. No one ever did. He didn't go to the police. He didn't tell the Soviets. He didn't write anything down. Instead, he began collecting something far more valuable than documents: mistakes. Each night, he made mental notes of every inconsistency. The swapped labels, the weight shifts, the sudden power outages. That aligned a little too well with unscheduled pickups. He memorized every route, every face, every slip in routine. He didn't stop cleaning. But now, he cleaned with purpose. And when the time was right, he started pulling the thread. He would misfile shipments, move crates to alternate docks, leave shipping logs on the wrong desks. He poured cleaning solution onto manifests he wasn't supposed to see, then retyped them in a cleaner format with strategic errors. Nothing that would raise alarms, just enough to spark questions, confusion, friction. One night, he placed a high-priority crate on the wrong conveyor line. The wrong truck took it. It ended up in the wrong depot. The Soviets chalked it up to human error. The following week, he delayed the van's pickup by rerouting the factory access badge system. The guards were blamed. When 2 shipments vanished entirely, the internal security team arrested a junior clerk who'd been taking long smoke breaks. He confessed to nothing. There was nothing to confess. By late 1955, the spy network operating out of the textile factory had begun to self-destruct. Trust eroded. Workers quit or disappeared. Security intensified, then fractured under its own weight. But the real cause was never suspected, because he was always right there, sweeping just behind the guards, wiping down tables outside closed-door briefings, changing bulbs above smuggled secrets. They never looked down far enough. They didn't know their quiet janitor had orchestrated every missing crate, every delayed pickup, every discrepancy in the logs. And when the final van pulled in on March 3rd, Emil made just one last change, a routing slip, rerouting the courier to the old service garage. No one remembered the gas leak there, but he did. They loaded the crates, signed the falsified log, and pulled away. 19 minutes later, the van erupted. Inside, flames, shrapnel, melted documents, and a single mop handle. They searched for months, but they never found the mole, because the mole wasn't on the payroll. He didn't wear a uniform, and by the time they suspected anything at all, he had already cleaned up everything behind him. Emil hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. He'd already pulled back from conversations, smoked less, drank coffee alone. His limp had worsened, but he kept working the night shifts, kept pushing his cart through the empty halls, kept watching. By early 1956, the entire system inside the Berlin Spindelwerke factory was unraveling. Security protocols changed weekly. The black sedan no longer came on Tuesdays. Now it came without headlights, on random nights, with different license plates and unfamiliar drivers. Workers were being questioned, behind closed doors. Some didn't return. Others said nothing, and just kept their heads down. The Soviets were rattled. Shipments were being intercepted by Western agents. One courier vanished on the way to the border. Another was arrested in Prague with false papers. None of this made sense to Soviet command. The operations had been airtight. Only trusted hands touched the crates. Only coded logs were used. The documents weren't stolen. They were being misdelivered, intercepted, or exposed mid-transit. They suspected the Americans, then the British, then each other. But the truth was simpler. Emil had been quietly feeding chaos into their system for 5 years. Not by leaking secrets, but by turning their efficiency against them. He didn't need to break in. He just had to make the system stumble, over and over again, until it collapsed under its own weight. He'd already chosen the final trigger. There was a crate scheduled for March 3rd. High priority, urgent delivery, 6 modified spindles packed with microfilm. Normally, it would be picked up at Dock 2, but Emil had other plans. Using a duplicate clipboard and a forged signature, he swapped the routing to the old garage, the one with the unrepaired gas leak near the overhead light panel. The pickup would still happen, but the environment would be less stable. He watched from the upper floor windows as the black Zim 12 van backed in. He could see the driver, bored and unaware. The escorts opened the garage doors, unloaded the crate, then reloaded. No one noticed the faint hiss from the corner pipes. No one smelled it. The light above the van flickered, then flashed. The explosion knocked Emil back from the window. Glass cracked. An alarm screamed across the yard. By the time he got outside, smoke curled into the night sky. 3 men dead, 6 crates incinerated. No survivors. No evidence. Except the burned fragments of film, warped metal, and one splintered piece of his old mop handle lodged in the passenger seat. The official report, mechanical fault. The classified report, possible sabotage. The real answer? He was already back inside, cleaning up the blood. Over the next 2 months, the operation dissolved. The courier system was shut down. The local Soviet liaison was reassigned. The factory reduced its shipments to near zero, and the KGB initiated a silent sweep across all East Berlin logistical hubs, believing they'd been breached at a systemic level. They were right, but they never knew how deep the breach was, or how low they'd have to look to find it. They searched for traitors in the offices, the supervisors, the paper trails, but they never suspected the janitor. And by the time they realized the courier system was unsalvageable, Emil had retired. No arrest, no interrogation, no medals, no name in a file, just quiet. Years later, when declassified Soviet files were released, one entry stood out. It read, "Target cipher, internal threat, ID unknown, non-combatant, occupation, janitor." No further data. Emil never told anyone what he did, never asked for recognition, never broke his silence. But he knew, and so did history. He didn't just mop the floors. He wiped the entire network clean. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.